designed to talk about primarily about the evacuation of Zone A. By now, everyone knows that the storm has taken a track that puts it pretty much directly over Tampa. And we have been issuing urges to people in Zone A to evacuate since yesterday, but now we're going to move to mandatory. So just in Zone A. However, we are strongly urging those in Zone B that if they feel they need to evacuate, now would be the time. There's no need to wait. It's not going to get any better. So, but just mandatory for now in Zone A. So just a little bit of information. We have 16 general population shelters for residents in evacuation Zone A, as well as residents whose homes are vulnerable to storm surge and flooding. And so just a little comment on that. What we're really dealing with, we believe, in this storm is more wind. And that's why we're not that we shouldn't be concerned about flooding and storm surge, but the main focus is wind. And of course, residents who are in manufactured homes need to leave as well. According to the National Weather Service, we can begin to expect tropical storm force winds anywhere between noon and 2 p.m. tomorrow, Sunday. We should expect hurricane force winds to begin approximately 8 p.m. Sunday, tomorrow, and we will have storm surge as well. And I'll ask Preston Cook in a minute to come up and talk about that. So now is the time to finish your storm preparations. As I said, there's no need to wait. It's not going to get any better. So you really need to be pretty far along with your preparations. The county's Emergency Operations Center, this facility, has been activated since Wednesday. All emergency responder agencies and our partners are working around the clock to prepare and respond for the storm. So we have 183 residents currently transported to special needs shelters by Sunshine Line, Hillsborough County Public Schools, Heart, AmeriCare, and TransCare. We've had more than 2 million visitors to the county's website, more than 300,000 sandbags distributed at 7 locations throughout Hillsborough County. By comparison, we distributed 80,000 over the prior 2 years. So we've distributed over 300,000 sandbags just in the last week. And I know that some folks have been frustrated, but it was largely due to supply, especially after Hurricane Harvey. We responded to 4,500, almost 4,600 residents' calls throughout the county's customer service line. 106 volunteers and staff are deployed to the 16 emergency shelters, and approximately 3,000 evacuees are currently housed at our general population shelters. We do expect that to increase significantly now that we've moved to a mandatory evacuation. So to stay up, to follow us and stay up to date on storm information and sign up for emergency alerts, go to hcflgov.net/stay-safe. That's hcflgov.net/stay-safe. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and the Nextdoor app, and search for Hillsborough, Florida on those platforms. Also, one important thing for folks to understand is that many have been looking at their flood map for information, and instead they need to be looking at the evacuation map. And the evacuation maps are up on the Stay Safe site. That's the one I mentioned earlier, under the Find Evacuation Information. So with me I have Preston Cook, our emergency manager, Chief Jones over our fire rescue department. We have Senator Darrell Rasan here with us today. Thank you, Senator. And Catherine Egan, who's the CEO of Heart. So each of them will want to address you, but I think I'm going to have Preston come up and just give you the nuts and bolts of the storm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So as we've said, the entire week, this is a serious storm. It was uncertain as to exactly where it would go. And that's why we've taken the position and the posture that we have here in Hillsborough County. We activated early. We've gotten all of our team members here. They're leaning forward. Everybody's ready to go. We started the evacuation for special needs in Zone A early enough to get those folks out of harm's way. Some of that is still continuing. We started, and we said all the time that as this storm progresses and the track gets a little more clear, that we would continue to assess and make changes. And that's really what we're doing now. And that's why this morning, when we went to a mandatory level A, it's because of the impacts or potential impacts that we would see from this storm. So we want everybody to continue to watch the track, continue to stay focused on what this storm is doing, because it still could change. It's not here yet. So I want anybody to get complacent. Continue to finish those plans that you have for your families. Continue to do the things to make your family stay safe. This mandatory level A evacuation is really to make sure that we get people out of harm's way in terms of storm surge. I want to be clear, that's what we evacuate for. We evacuate for storm surge threats here because that is the most dangerous part of a hurricane. So what we're looking at and working with the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service, right now, we're seeing that the storm surge threat for us really indicates that we really need to look at level A. Now, for those that don't know, if they're not clear or clearly understand exactly where level A is, that's why we wanted to have the maps for you. We'll make these available for you. But everyone up against the coastal area here in Hillsborough County, as you're looking on the map, the areas in red here, not the yellow, not the green, not any of the areas. The yellows and red are what we're talking about right now. That's mandatory for you to get out. Obviously, if you're in category level B, evacuation zone, and as Mike said, you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to be safe, and you need to consider the safety of your family. So do what you need to do to make sure that your family's safe. As we're talking about this evacuation, I want everybody to be clear. We have 16 shelters open, as Mike mentioned. Those shelters are available. Folks are going to those shelters, they're taking advantage of it, but not everybody has to go to a shelter. If you don't need to go to a shelter, just get to a safe location. We're not asking you to go hundreds of miles. We're asking you to go tens of miles. As you look at the map, Hillsborough County, the areas that are outside of our evacuation zone are areas where we have shelters set up, and those are areas that are safe. If you have family, if you have friends, if you have those that you can go to and get a hotel room or what have you outside of the surge zone, that's what you need to do. Just make sure that the facility is strong enough to withstand the winds that we're expecting from this storm. So mobile home parks, manufactured homes, that's what we're saying. They can't withstand the wind. They need to evacuate now as well, anywhere in the county. So we just wanted to be clear. Another point, we're hearing the question, as Mike mentioned, flood zones. This is the surge zones that we have are from the water driven by the wind from a hurricane that can push on shore. When we're talking about flood zones, we're talking about inland flooding, and those that live in the areas near our rivers, the Little Manatee, the Alafaya. You know that we get a lot of rain and those areas flood. You know that these are known areas for us. We're expecting right now possibly up to 10 to 12 inches of rain with this storm. Again, it's unknown, but you need to plan for that. With that type of spike, you need to be getting to high ground if you live in those areas that are known to flood. Again, we're talking surge zones for the hurricane surge, but also we're talking flood zones. If you know you're in a known flood zone, be prepared to go to higher ground. We want everyone to continue to listen to the messages coming out because this storm is still changing, folks. It's not here yet, and it still could make changes. It could do a lot of different things. We want everybody to be as safe as possible and just continue to stay focused. Mike?
From the fire rescue standpoint, we'll be calling in additional personnel to staff our stations. We're going to stand up technical search and rescue teams throughout the county. These are highly skilled firefighters, fire medics who have additional training. They will go out as soon as the storm passes. So what we'll be doing is calling in additional personnel. We'll be prepared before the storm arrives. There will be a period of time while the storm is over us that we will be unable to respond because of the high wind speeds. You should be aware of that, and the dispatch 911 center will report that to you if you call in. As soon as the storm passes and the wind speeds are safe for us to be out on the roads, we will immediately go out into the communities. These 8 or more technical search teams will be dispersed throughout the county. They will be going out with bulldozers and push crews. There will be TECO line crew with them. There will be additional support so they can take care of any challenges that we may face, whether it be cutting power lines, removing trees, and getting access to the communities that are the most damaged. We additionally will have, because of the riverine flooding as well as the flooding that will occur due to the storm surge, We are going to have additional aquatic assets, boats, john boats, rigid hull inflatables, inflatable boats dispersed throughout the county with trained rescuers on those as well to handle any of the water issues that might occur. We are definitely, we've been planning for several days specific to this storm. Lived here all my life. This is the worst storm that this state will face. You need to be prepared for it. You need to plan, have a plan for your family. Heed the advice of emergency management and government. Do what we're asking you to do. Go to a shelter, safe shelter, and know that we are prepared once that storm has passed. We are prepared to go out into the community and do everything we can to help those that need the help. Thank you.
Good morning. Senator Darrell Roussan, Senate District 19, portions of Hillsborough and Pinellas counties. The time to be brave is now for our first responders, for our law enforcement, for our firefighters, for the great staff of Hillsborough County. I want to congratulate County Administrator Mike Merrill for what he's done and his entire staff, and the Hillsborough County Commissioner and their chairman for working diligently. The time to be brave is not for our citizens to hunker down, but follow the directions, the instructions of the law enforcement professionals, of the emergency professionals. When they tell you to evacuate, evacuate. Mandatory means mandatory, and particularly to the portions of my district, Apollo Beach and Riverview and Brandon that are in A, please, if you haven't left, please go. Safety is about family. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Catherine Egan with HART, Hillsborough Area Regional Transit. We're the transit entity here in Hillsborough County. First, I want to say thank you to our over 100 staffers who are out there on the street and keeping us running today. Let us get you out of harm's way today. Evacuation routes began at 7 this morning. They will run until at least 7 o'clock tonight. For our HART Plus paratransit patrons, you can call 254-4278. Again, that's 254-4278. We will get you out of harm's way. We are currently serving Shields, Pizzo, I always get this name wrong, Cypress Creek Elementary because Shields is closed, Middleton, and Smith for the evacuation shelters, but you do not have to go to a shelter. Let us get you somewhere safe. Buses are free today. We are doing a flag stop. You can wave us down. We know we will run today until at least 7 p.m. We do not know what the storm will bring us tomorrow. Please let us help you get safe today. After the storm concludes and we can get back out on the street, we will be bringing you home from the shelters. We're staging our fleet now out of flood and wind areas to make sure we can get you home safely, but let us get you somewhere safe today. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Senator Roussan, for coming over. That was a big trip over, I appreciate it. So just before we open up for questions, what you've heard is that we are prepared. We have experienced folks ready to respond. We have been responding, but the nature of this storm is so immense that some folks will have to be patient as we get through this, because as the chief said, when it's in full storm mode, we won't be able to leave. I'm not going to send folks out and endanger them. So there may be a period of time when I know folks may get impatient, but we will get to you. It just may take a little longer. That's why you need to be prepared, potentially to ride this out for a while. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have.
Sir, what's your biggest fear at this point?
Well, I think the biggest fear is that the winds continue to mount and that and the storm surge is greater than we expected. My other fear is that we don't get people moved in the shelters out of Zone A quickly enough. We do have time, but again, people who get trapped create a problem for themselves as well as for the responders. So at this point, I mean, as Preston said, we're hoping it doesn't get any worse, but that would be a much worse situation.
If people booked hotels and their hotels are in Zone A, can you explain to them they will be impacted if they try to go to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually had somebody ask me that. Would they be safe on the 8th floor of a hotel in Harbor Island? And I said, well, you might survive, but you might not get out for quite a while, and no one can get to you. So yes, if someone did book a room in Zone A, you probably want to rethink that.
On top of the 16 shelters open now, do you have space to open more if needed?
Yes, we do. We do, absolutely.
I know you talked briefly about emergency services, but if somebody calls 911 during a storm, what would you tell them?
Chief, you want to
Yes.
take that one?
Great question. They have a pre-prepared script so that when the winds go over 50 miles an hour and we are unable to respond because of the safety of being on the roadway with flying debris, there's a statement they will make that at this time we're unable to respond. The station has been notified, and as soon as the winds allow response, they will respond to your address.
Could you enlarge upon the dangers of live wires and the difficulty you anticipate from that?
That's a great question. Also, if we assume all wires on the ground are live, even if the whole zone the grid is out, we're gonna assume that they're live. There's gonna be a communication with TECO, and that is the reason for us that we take a TECO lineman with us with our technical search and rescue teams. For the community, I would just encourage them to treat all downed wires as live wires and avoid them and stay away from them.
You said the time to get out is now. Do you anticipate making any more mandatory evacuations for Zone B?
For B, no, not at this time,
Unless things change.
unless things change. I'm sorry?
Live in Zone A that are impacted by that now mandatory
100
evacuation order?
143.
143,000.
Okay.
As far as the regional transit going to the shelters, is that, you said that it's going to go till 7 o'clock tonight, is that a cutoff? Is there any service tomorrow, or is that
Thank you for the question. We'll play it by ear tomorrow. Clearly, if the shelters are open and receiving folks, we'll be out there as early as 7. Like everyone else, we come off the road at 39 miles an hour, and we don't drive up to 39. We then have to get that bus positioned, of course. But we'll be out there as long as it's safe for us to carry folks. We also don't want to encourage folks to be coming out to evacuate last minute and end up stuck on a bus. So watch our Twitter feed. My Twitter feed's Ms_Egan. We'll keep the information out, but as long as it's safe for us to get people around, we will.
question about hospitals? Are any of them going to be evacuated, and do we have access to all hospitals?
Many of our hospitals, especially TGH and those like that, have plans in place to deal with their patients and our hardened facilities. Those that have needed to move, many of them have plans in place and are moving to either sister facilities and those types of things. Those that can't, we're working with them right now to make sure that we can assist in any way. We haven't had any request specifically that I can share right now for hospitals. But we're looking at, especially with the mandatory evacuation, any ALFs and agencies that have a need for assistance. We're working through those issues right now, but everyone is in the process, starting at 08 this morning with the mandatory evacuation, and as we go throughout the day, some of those issues probably will come up and continue to go up because they're being seen around the entire state. This is a huge storm, and it's impacting all of us. And so, of course, you have to remember, this impacts resources everywhere. And the state is doing all they can to assist us. We're moving heaven and earth here at the local level to make sure that we can accommodate the things that we need to. But again, as Mike mentioned, patience is going to be key. And once we get through this storm, it's going to be even more so on the recovery side because we're whacked the way that we potentially could be with this thing. It's going to be a while before we're back to normal. So we're working all of those issues now.
When it comes to high rises in downtown, I know some of them are in A, and it looks like some are in B. What do you advise residents in high rises?
If you're in level A, it's a mandatory evacuation. That's what we advise them to do, is get out. That's bottom line, right? And if you feel as though you need to get safe to a safer location and B, as we've said, take those actions that keep you and your family safe, take them now and go to somewhere safe. You don't have to go to a shelter. Shelter is a refuge of last resort. It's not the Hilton. It's not going to be the most comfortable place for you, but it is a safe place for you to ride out the storm. We have shelters open. We have the ability to increase that number of shelters here for us if we have a need to. We're watching those numbers hour by hour, and we're adjusting as we need to. We will continue to do that through this entire event. What we did was we gave us enough time to have, to get everyone out of level A and even level B if we needed to, if we have a need to change. That's why even for a level C evacuation, we needed approximately 24 hours to do that. Well, we started the level A mandatory at 0800 this morning, and we have until 08, according to what we're hearing from the National Weather Service, on a Sunday, tomorrow morning, to get these people to safety. We don't want people to take that for granted and wait. We want them to go now. That's the point.
For disabled or special needs people in Zone B or those who have not yet evacuated Zone A, what can they do to seek evacuation help?
We have not called for a mandatory evacuation for Zone B, so we're not asking those folks to leave right now. Those folks are in Zone A. We have called them. We have provided transportation for those special needs residents. But if they feel the need to go to one of the special needs shelters, they are available. They're open for them. We ask residents all year, every day, to register for the Special Needs Registry Program so that we'll know what their needs are, we'll know where they are, we'll have the ability to communicate with them and assess their needs and make sure that we can meet those needs. At this point, if you haven't registered, and if you are in Zone A, then you can still go to those special needs shelters that are open now, right? And you can get assessed on scene and granted access if you meet those qualifications. If not, there will be general population shelters or other facilities available for them, okay? Sure.
Hey everybody, I'm Grayson Comm. I'm the Communications and Media Officer with Hillsborough County Public Schools. Just to update you on what we have going on, a lot of people are asking about Tuesday. Obviously, schools are closed through Monday. We have not made a decision on Tuesday yet, but the superintendent is watching this and in constant contact with everyone here. So we're going to be watching that throughout the day and making a decision at some point as soon as we feel like we have a clear picture on schools for Tuesday. And we're obviously also working in coordination with other superintendents in other districts in the area. A couple of pieces of information about what we're doing. Obviously, we have schools across the community that are open as shelters, and we have prepped and staged for more. As they were discussing, there is possibility to open more shelters. We are ready for that. The school district has about 1,200 people right now, staff members who are either working or on standby, doing a lot of different things, working in security, working in student nutrition services to stock food for shelters. And also we have administrative staffs from our schools that actually go in and help manage the shelters as well. So we have about 1,200 staff members who are either working or we expect them to work at some point during the storm or the aftermath because they're on standby. A statistic for you, our student nutrition services team from Hillsborough County Public Schools forward stocked 59,500 gallons of milk to get ready for this, to handle the folks who are coming into these potential shelters. They're expecting to feed potentially 34,000 meals a day through our shelter system, but we do want to ask folks, if they can, to go ahead and bring some food with them to these shelters so you can have what you want, comfort food that's good for your family as well. And one last point, we have about 50 school buses that are constantly on the road right now, working with HART and others to evacuate folks to special needs shelters. We're actually rotating out the drivers to keep them fresh while the school buses stay on the road. So we're working with the community to try to help bring everyone to safety. And I'm available if you have any more questions about the school district, but we're happy and proud to be a partner when the community needs us most.
Any other questions before I introduce Senator Nelson, who's here with us? No, Senator, please.
First of all, I want to give a shout out to all of local law enforcement, the first responders, and particularly I want to give a shout out to the National Weather Service, NOAA, that have put up the satellites. The NOAA G4 that flew last night at 45,000 feet, dropping about 21 instrumented packages that improves the accuracy of the hurricane track 15%. Because of that hurricane track, 2 days ago, we thought it was going to be an East Coast storm. Now it's going to be a West Coast storm. And once we get the 11 o'clock track, it's been drifting to the west. If it goes out into the Gulf and goes north, that is the west coast of Florida's worst nightmare. Because if its eye is out in the Gulf, it has the fuel from the hot water and the cyclone winds from the southeast up to the northeast, that will drive the water straight up into the bays if it's out in the Gulf. And that, of course, is what Tampa Bay does not want. So we'll see where the track goes. Earlier today on an interview, people asked me what I would recommend. It's not what I recommend. It's do what local law enforcement tells you. But I can tell you already out on I-4, I'm starting to see the I-4 eastbound traffic because they're recognizing that it could be that Tampa Bay monster. Interestingly, FEMA is stretched in its resources because of Texas. As of yesterday, FEMA was going to run out of money, and that's why on Thursday we passed, fortunately, a $15 billion package. $7.5 billion goes to FEMA. The remaining $7.5 will go to local government, but that's only going to last us until the middle of October. And we'll have to go back on supplemental emergency appropriations in order to keep it going because of Texas and now because of Florida. But FEMA is pre-positioned to come in. Same thing with the Coast Guard and all the other federal agencies. They're ready. I am just very proud of the way that Floridians have reacted. This could be a monster that we didn't expect on the West Coast, and here it comes. Thank you.
All right. Any last questions you might have?
Any questions for me?
Any more questions for Senator Nelson or Preston or any of us? No? All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.